What if you lived your whole life not knowing where you came from? What if, for 57 years, every face on the street could have been your family, but you could never be sure? This is the story of a woman who was abandoned as a baby on a small street in Saigon. A woman who spent her entire life wondering who she truly was, until one morning a phone call from across the ocean changed everything. Her name is Ngọc Trần. And this is the story of a miracle that took 57 years to find its way home. The Girl Without a Name, Saigon, 1967. The war was raging, but on a quiet morning along Vô Đình Gui Street, a baby girl was left behind. No one knew her name. No one knew her story. All that was known was that a young woman, frightened, trembling, handed her newborn child to an older lady before disappearing into the crowded market. That child was Ngọc. The woman who took her in was a middle-aged seamstress. She lived with her 3 daughters in a small house where the scent of rice and fabric dye mingled with the sounds of airplanes roaring overhead. At first, the baby's mother came to visit every week. She brought milk, small envelopes of money, and soft lullabies that seemed to carry the sadness of 1,000 unspoken words. But after 3 months, she never returned. No address, no letter, only silence. The seamstress, who would later become Ngọc adoptive grandmother, decided to raise the child herself. And so, amid the chaos of a divided country, a little girl with light skin and brown eyes grew up learning to survive, to smile, and to hide her difference. Because in those days, being con lai, a mixed child, was a stigma. It meant whispers behind your back. It meant you didn't belong. Not here, not anywhere. Ngọc childhood was filled with questions she couldn't ask and dreams she couldn't explain. She never had a photo of her parents. When people asked where she came from, she would force a smile and say, "I was born right here, in this house." The truth was too painful and too empty to share. As she grew older, she watched her friends fall in love, get married, build families of their own. But for Ngọc, something inside her always held back. She once told her friend, "How can I build a family when I don't even know who I belong to?" Years turned into decades. Her grandmother grew old, and the 3 aunts, the seamstress's daughters, became her mothers. They protected her fiercely, even when others called her names. To them, she was simply our Ngọc. Their love was her world, the only anchor she had ever known. Then, in 2007, her grandmother passed away. That day, as she stood before the altar, Ngọc whispered through tears, "Grandma, if I ever find where I came from, I'll tell you first." That promise, spoken from a heart heavy with loss, would become the start of her 50-year search for the truth. The search across oceans. After her grandmother's death, the quiet house on Phan Dinh Phung Street felt emptier than ever. Ngọc would often wake in the middle of the night and stare at the ceiling, her mind wandering through endless what-ifs. What if her mother was still alive? What if her father had never known she existed? And what if, just maybe, someone, somewhere, was looking for her too? That thought gave her courage. In 2018, she began her search. Sitting at a small desk with an old laptop, she typed 2 simple words into Google: Vietnamese Amerasian. Dozens of articles appeared, stories of children fathered by American soldiers during the war who were left behind when the troops withdrew. She read about Operation Baby Lift, about the heartbreak of families torn apart, and about others like her, people who had spent their lives searching for their American roots. For months, she read, joined online forums, and watched reunion videos until her eyes stung from tears. Then, one day, she stumbled upon a name, Jimmy A. Miller, founder of Amerasians Without Borders, an organization that helped Vietnamese Amerasians reunite with their birth families in the United States. Her heart raced. For the first time, she felt a spark of real hope. Ngọc immediately reached out. Jimmy replied warmly, encouraging her to take a DNA test. She agreed, and soon after, a small kit arrived from the US, a plastic tube that carried the promise of half a lifetime's unanswered prayers. But fate wasn't done testing her patience. The first DNA sample got damaged in transit, then the second. By the 4th attempt, the samples were still unusable. Each time, she waited weeks, sometimes months, only to receive an email saying, "We're sorry." The sample couldn't be processed. She cried. She prayed. She told Jimmy she might give up, but Jimmy refused to let her. "Try one more time," he said. "Just once more." So she did, and on that 5th try, as she sealed the small saliva tube and placed it in the mail, she whispered, "Please, just let me know who I am." Weeks passed, then months, until one morning in March 2023, her phone rang before dawn. 4:30 a.m., unknown number. She hesitated, and then picked up. "Hello?" A voice on the other end said softly, "We have your results." Her heart stopped. For a moment she couldn't breathe. When the voice continued, tears filled her eyes. Her DNA had matched with an American family, the family of a man named Ronald Neil Hodnett, an Air Force veteran from North Carolina, her father, a father she never met. The news of the DNA match arrived quietly, but for Ngọc, it was an earthquake. Her hands trembled as she read the report. Ronald Neil Hodnett, Air Force veteran, North Carolina, USA. For 57 years, that empty space on every form, father's name, finally had an answer. Ronald had served in the U.S. Air Force for nearly 3 decades. Those who knew him described a man devoted to family, but changed by the war, private, thoughtful, and haunted by memories he never spoke of. After returning from Vietnam, he led a modest life, caring for his aunt and her adopted son. He never married, and he never mentioned a child. He died in 1994, unaware that a daughter halfway across the world still carried his blood and his face. Through the DNA network, Ngọc was introduced to Ronald's sister, Linda, who agreed to meet her online. The first time they saw each other on screen, both women fell silent. The resemblance was undeniable. The same gentle eyes, the same soft curve of a smile. Linda broke down in tears, overwhelmed by the discovery of a lost niece she never knew existed. She told Ngọc about Ronald's life, his long years of service, and how his old uniform was still carefully preserved by the family. The Air Force hat he once wore, Linda said, would soon belong to Ngọc. For Ngọc, every detail was like uncovering fragments of a story she had only dreamed of. She would never hear his voice, never see the way he moved, never feel the weight of his embrace, but she could imagine him now, not as a stranger, but as a father. She looked at his photograph for hours, tracing the lines of his face as if learning a language she had always known. Friends noticed the change in her. Her eyes seemed brighter, her voice steadier. After decades of uncertainty, she finally felt anchored, connected not only to a man she'd never met, but to a lineage, a place, and a name that had always been missing. For the first time, Ngọc could say, without hesitation or doubt, "I know who I am." And though her father's life had ended long ago, his story, and hers, had finally found their way back to each other. Coming home. The story doesn't end with DNA results. Because for Ngọc, finding her father wasn't just about uncovering the past, it was about reclaiming a future. In early 2024, she prepared to leave Vietnam for the United States, her other homeland, her destination, Spokane, Washington, where many Amerasians like her had settled through the help of Jimmy's organization. Her Aunt Linda would fly from North Carolina to meet her there. "You've been away for far too long," Linda had said on the phone. "It's time to come home." Before her departure, Ngọc spent her final weeks visiting every familiar street in Saigon, the small alley where she learned to walk, the temple where her grandmother used to pray, and the house that had sheltered her through every storm. She packed a small suitcase, a photo of her grandmother, a blouse that still carried her scent, and a heart full of gratitude. On her last evening in Vietnam, she lit incense at her grandmother's altar. Her 3 adoptive mothers, now in their 70s and 80s, stood beside her. Together, they bowed. Through quiet tears, Ngọc whispered, "Grandma, I found him. I'm finally coming home." As the smoke curled toward the ceiling, she felt something lift inside her, as if a lifetime of searching had finally found peace. The next morning, she boarded a plane for the United States. The engines roared, and the clouds opened up before her. 57 years after being left behind, the little girl from Võ Đình Gui Street was going home, not just to meet a family she had never known, but to embrace the other half of her soul. In the end, Ngọc story isn't about loss. It's about the extraordinary resilience of love, the kind that travels across oceans, generations, and decades, to remind us that family is never truly lost. Sometimes, it's just waiting to be found.